Welcome to My Business Matters, the Michigan Chamber podcast.
Hello, I am Becky Burtka, Vice President of Member Engagement with Michigan Chamber and today's podcast host. We are going to take a closer look at the biggest HR and employment law issues and trends affecting the workplace today and what employers need to know. So with me today, we have two people that are just steeped in all things tax policy and, not tax policy, actually HR policy. But here with us today, who are going to help us break things down from a couple of different angles, we have Ashleigh Draft, who is a labor and employment attorney at Varnum and one of the state's leading law firms. We also have Monica Lloyd with us, founder of PeopleForward, a great HR engagement strategy and development firm. So as always, we have a lot to cover. I do want to say thank you to both of these ladies for joining us at our summit in March. It was sold out and we had amazing conversations. So I'm just going to start there as a great thank you to both of you, but welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Becky. Glad to be here.
So let's introduce you guys to our audience here with a little bit of background about what each of you do. So tell us about yourselves day to day, as a lawyer and an entrepreneur. So Ashleigh, why don't you go ahead and start?
Thanks so much, Becky. My name, as you said, is Ashleigh Draft. I am a labor and employment attorney based in Varnum's Grand Rapids office. My practice really kind of spans all areas of labor and employment law, from policy development and compliance counseling to more adversarial proceedings and defending employers in litigation or before an administrative agency.
That sounds very intense.
It sure can be, especially during times like right now where we're having so much change in employment law, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And Monica, how about you give us a little snapshot of your day-to-day and what you do as the founder of PeopleForward?
Yeah, of course. So we are a firm that helps organizations drive business results through human performance. So my background is 15 plus years in human resources and HR leadership. And before I left industry, I held a seat as a chief human resources officer. But then what I wanted to do is bring this sort of people and talent strategy to my clients all over the country. So we're based out of Southwest Michigan, and we really partner with executive teams and HR leaders to crack the code on their talent and people. Without people between your business strategy, there are no business results. And people are the life and the breath in organizations. So I really come in and help provide a data-driven approach to driving those results through the people.
That's awesome. I love how you characterized that. So, Ashleigh, as you kind of mentioned, there's a lot going on. Notable state laws have changed in Michigan this year. Started that gearing up of compliance and outreach last year, but that was specifically on paid leave and minimum wage. As the chamber, we've been laser focused on this for the last several months, just kind of getting the word out to our Michigan businesses here with that Michigan Supreme Court ruling and then the tweaks that we had at the very end in February, just to make it more workable for employers and employees. And it's in effect now, right? And really affects just businesses of all types and sizes across the state. So from your vantage point, what are the biggest things employers need to know? And what should they be doing right now just to make sure that they are in compliance?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to speak to this. So the first thing I would say is that, of course, we have our March 23 deadline coming up for developing and distributing policies that are compliant with Michigan's Earned Sick Time Act. And so, a lot of our clients are gearing up to distribute those policies tomorrow or at the very latest on Monday morning. But I think the biggest two things that have been really hard for a lot of employers to wrap their minds around. The first is that if you have leave, paid leave, that was granted to employees and used by employees prior to February 21, which was the effective date of the act, you cannot count that paid leave time toward your ESTA compliance. This is not something that was in the language of the statute itself, but Leo has come out and been really clear about their guidance on this, that leave time that was granted and used prior to February 1 really can't be counted toward compliance. And I think the other thing is that a lot of employers think that as long as they have some kind of paid leave policy that provides the right amount of leave, that provides 72 hours, then they're done. And unfortunately, that's just not the case, because there are some other elements of ESTA that govern exactly how that leave can be administered. And so employers need to be really mindful about compliance, not just in terms of the number of hours that they're giving, but how those hours are used and administered.
Got it. And just for our audience, I want to make sure that when we refer to LEO, we're referring to the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, and that department is responsible for guidance and an enforcement of the act. So just putting a finer point on that. But thank you. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we're still kind of sifting through and learning on the go. But Monica, have you, with PeopleForward and your clients, have you been sifting through any of this just from a policy perspective, maybe not so much on the legal side?
Yeah, certainly not on the legal side, but it is top of mind for everyone who's in business, right? And I think that what I try to help people understand is that your business doesn't need to be held hostage as a result of ESTA. And I think that it's extremely important to still be able to make good business decisions for your business and balance it with taking care of your people. It's all about balance to me, and, you know, keeping open lines of communication, keeping it focused on relationship with your team members. I mean, the whole premise behind this is to try to make sure people have what they need, because for a long time, people haven't always had what they need, depending on who you work for, what industry you're in, all that sort of thing. And so really to kind of get to the root of why this is the way it is now is to take care of people. And let's make it so your people have what they need, understand why we need to make the business decisions that we need to make, are clear on the expectations and the accountability around that. So I think it's kind of just getting back to basics with good people leadership, communication, expectations, and alignment when it comes to that, but also still make business decisions that you need to make for your business. Document really well.
That's really good advice, yes. So I know we've talked a lot about ESTA over the last few months, but there are still other waves in HR and employment. So what are some of those shifts and issues that we should be paying attention to in 2025, maybe both at the state and federal level?
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, Becky, because I feel like in a lot of ways, for those of us in Michigan, ESTA has kind of blocked out the sun a little bit in recent months, but there really is a lot at the federal level and even still at the state level that is shifting and is really in flux. A few things that I would want to highlight at the federal level is immigration compliance. So, it's no surprise to any of our listeners that there has been an increased focus by the current administration on immigration, and we anticipate some additional and new compliance efforts from the administration. So, something simple that employers can do is just conduct like an I-9 audit. Make sure you've got your I-9 forms ready to go. Make sure that, if there have been any errors or oversights in your I-9 process, that you have a chance to correct those now, before there's, maybe an immigration officer asking you questions about them. The other thing I would mention is there has been some real shift in terms of what type of what discrimination law, anti-discrimination law looks like at the federal level. So just yesterday, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and the Department of Justice released a joint document that is providing some new guidance on something that the EEOC is calling DEI-related discrimination. And to my knowledge, this is an entirely new concept from the EEOC. I have not seen something like this before. But essentially, the EEOC is putting out guidance. It's titled, What You Should Know About DEI-Related Discrimination at Work. And it's encouraging and assisting employees in evaluating whether or not an employer's DEI initiatives or programs are unlawful. So this is really, I would say, a shift, certainly, from the EEOC and what we have seen in recent years. And I really think that the boundaries of when and how an employer can make decisions around diversity and equity and inclusion, those boundaries may be shifting and maybe shifting pretty quickly. And so this is certainly a big change and something that we're keeping a close eye on.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think federally there are a lot of things shifting, and we will be top of mind in making sure that all of that information gets out to our membership as well. Monica, do you mind sharing anything that you're seeing as far as shifts or trends, maybe even either at the state or the federal level in wake of maybe some of these more legal or guidance, being issued?
Yeah, I think that for me, Ashleigh did a great job of articulating the things that are coming and are happening. I think that how that then applies to the workplace is we start to shift HR's function in ways that likely aren't going to help us drive culture and experience, because we are taking up a lot of our HR leaders' time with these new things, new laws, new tracking, new requirements, lots of things that are scary if we don't get them right. And so with that, I just think it's really important for employers to not lose sight of the employee experience that they are hopefully being intentional with creating for their teams in the world of work that everybody lives in within their company.
I love how you keep bringing it back to the people. I think that is so important.
It's all about balance, right? Everyone needs the Ashleigh. Everybody needs a Monica.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, talking about people, let's talk a little bit about hiring process and onboarding process. I know, Ashleigh, you kind of mentioned an I-9 audit as it relates to the legal side and maybe just making sure that everything's square from that perspective. But let's talk a little bit about maybe some of the mistakes people make when you see a hiring process or an onboarding process, and let's pivot to some of those maybe best practices that you could share with some of the employers that are listening to us today.
So I think that the biggest shift and most important thing that I bring and I see and I think that really benefits my clients is adding an objective data point to the hiring and selection process. When we simply go off of resume and interview alone, we open ourselves up to risk, not only for discrimination, but for poor hires and the cost around that and how that can impact our employer brand and our team engagement and our productivity, and all of that impacts the bottom line. And so one best practice that I think is extremely important is adding that objective data point that can create alignment within your hiring team and the stakeholders that are going to be interacting with this new hire. There's oftentimes misalignment there, which is, causing issue right out of the gate. But then additionally, finding out who is this person in front of you, how are they wired, what behaviors do they find natural and important to them and who they are as a person, and how do we create alignment with the roles that we are trying to select people for to make sure that we're getting the right person in the right seat with the right skill set at the right time.
Yeah, definitely. I love that characterization, and I think hiring is, we're hearing about it from our members. They're struggling with hiring. They're struggling with finding the right talent. So aligning things makes a ton of sense. Ashleigh, have you seen anything on the hiring process or onboarding process, or anything that you would like to put a finer point on there?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with everything that Monica said for sure. I think, to just build on that, I would encourage folks to make sure that you are training the people who are on the front lines of hiring and onboarding to make sure that what they are saying and what they are doing aligns with whatever policies, you have kind of back in the HR office on the shelf. Because it doesn't do you a lot of good to have a great policy on non-discrimination in hiring if we have, hiring people who are actually doing the work who are maybe asking questions that we didn't want them to ask, or if we have a manager training somebody, we ask, well, what's that manager actually telling the person to do in terms of clocking in and clocking out, or how and when they put on their safety gear in the workplace, right? So understanding exactly what's being communicated to new employees and to applicants, I think, is really important.
And bringing it back to that, that legal perspective, which is awesome. So we are wrapping up here, but I do want to give each of you an opportunity to just share a key takeaway or a piece of advice that you would give employers from your respective corners of the world, to stay on top of or ahead of these HR and employment changes. So Monica, I'll let you go first with that.
Yeah, so I think it is to really focus on employee experience. I mean, the changes that we are seeing are to benefit the employees, and I'd imagine we're going to continue to see that be more of a push. And so to stay ahead of that, just start creating workplaces people love, right? I mean, that's the mission of PeopleForward, and I think that when we can really start to balance the employee experience with the business need, right? Because we're still running businesses. We still have revenue and expenses. We still need to have profit. But how to do that well, where it can be a win-win and not, a zero-sum game.
Excellent. Ashleigh, how about you?
Yeah, I think I would say, the pace of change is really quick right now, and it is not likely to slow down. So I would encourage people who are listening to stay close to your industry associations, to the chamber, stay close to your lawyers, to your HR consultants like Monica, and really remain alert, because there is a lot of change coming and the pace isn't going to slow down. And a lot of us are going to be asked, I think, to do less with more, or do more with less, I should say, due to tight budgets. And so really leaning on the outside, your outside consultants and industry groups and chamber groups are really important.
Thank you for that. And, as the Michigan Chamber, we are constantly committed to providing those valuable resources. And so I appreciate both of you again for joining our summit in March, but also just spending some time with us. And it went fast again, as it does always. So a very, very special thanks to Ashleigh and Monica for their insight and their time. Please tune in to our next episode and subscribe or like our podcast for easy notifications. But until then,